Welcome to the All Around. I'm your gracious host, Dr. Anthony. Please tune in on Mondays at 6 p.m. for your entertainment purposes. We will hit current topics, old topics, and everything else in between. Be there or be square. Deuces, my loves. Hi, what's up? Welcome to another great episode of the All Around. I am your gracious host, Dr. Anthony, and we have some interesting topics for you today. Today, we're going to be discussing Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and all of the BS surrounding her campaign for Senate, and how they place unrealistic expectations on Black women and Black women in power. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring out my host, Mr. Mark Lee. My producer. I'm saying my host, my producer, Mr. Mark Lee.
I know what you meant and everything. Doing great. Definitely a lot of time women don't get the respect they deserve. I know that I've had some great women bosses, whether it was at the Durham Arts Council or whether it was here at the Hayti Heritage Center. So, and definitely, of course, my mom has been a woman leader, having run major philanthropic organizations, as well as worked at a number of other institutions, including our family radio station and everything like that. And of course, I had an aunt that was a principal at a school in, I think, both Richmond and New Jersey. And of course, I've got another aunt that was a medical librarian and an aunt that was a teacher. So I've definitely got a lot of respect, and I have a number of friends that are women leaders in everything from the sciences to medicine to a number of other things. So definitely have a great deal of respect for the women leaders out there. And you're right, a lot of times y'all don't get the respect that y'all need, and definitely sometimes are even found to be in situations where folks are trying to undermine you.
Yes, definitely. So, we've been seeing a lot of that since she has tossed her head into the ring for Senate, and I honestly believe she's going to be the next senator of Texas. But with all great things, you have criticism and things like that. So she has been receiving a lot of criticism, and I know that a lot of the criticism is coming from people that are not even based in Texas. These are the same people that were criticizing Kamala when she was running for president. Basically placing unrealistic expectations on her. For some reason they feel like we are supposed to be superpower, super women, and live up to this, Black girl magic thing or whatever. And we're not supposed to be able to show emotions. We're not supposed to be able to do this. They were talking about she's not hood. She's not down. No one said she was hood. She's just a fighter for, her constituents and things like that, as she should be. She's working for her people. And, they're trying to make it seem like, just because she went to a private school and, she has an education and she furthered her education, that she's not down for the cause. And my thing is, what makes you down for the cause? Who said that you have to be ignorant and from the hood to be down from the cause? No one is saying that, you have to do those things. No one is saying that you can't fight for, Black people, but that's the way that they're making it seem, that, you cannot fight for, Black people and things like that or whatever. So, it's just real interesting how they, come up with these different ideologies and these different scenarios for Black women and these different expectations that they place on us, but they would not place on, another race of, women and another, breed of women. But it's always, the Black women, we have unrealistic expectations that are placed on us by our men, by other people, by other races and things like that, that they never even considered to place on, white women. And, they can be the bottom of the barrel and they'll accept them, but we have to be the creme de la creme and basically perfect next to God, and they still won't accept us. So, it's very interesting, but, can you roll the clip and let's see what she has to say and what she's doing with her campaign.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll that clip and everything along those lines. Unfortunately, the computer's trying to do something crazy and everything like that. So we might have run the other clip if this computer wants to have a mind of its own, and I might have to come in the other room. So keep on talking, and I'll be right back because for some reason this computer is deciding that it wants to act crazy, even though it didn't do that in the first two shows.
On my Jasmine topic, that is so like, ugh. But anywho. Like I said, they're coming out the woodworks with, she accepted money from certain people, and, she doesn't support Gaza, and she supports this and she supports that. First and foremost, You know, we cannot help another nation until we fix things that are in our own backyard. We have people here who are struggling. We have people here who can barely take care of their children. We have people here who are barely feeding, you know, their children and things like that or whatever. So, you know, for you to try to place unrealistic expectations on her, just like y'all did with Kamala with the BS and things like that or whatever, it's utterly insane. You know, y'all
It
not
is totally insane. But we got the video, so let's check out what she got to say about her run
All
for
right.
the Senate and how
I'll
she
get back
thinks
with my
that she can.
commentary after Mark finishes rolling the video. So let's go
Let's
ahead.
check out
roll
this
it.
video about her running for Senate and her feeling that she's got a good shot, and then we'll hear her other commentary on the Epstein case and her role on that. But let's check this out.
Thousands of Texas voters have already cast their ballots in the primary elections, but a vast majority of eligible voters haven't done so yet. And that gives candidates a chance to make their case and earn their votes. In the race for U.S. Senate, Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett says she's the Democrats' best chance at flipping the seat that U.S. Senator John Cornyn holds now. She faces State Representative James Tallarico in the Democratic primary. Congresswoman Crockett has held campaign events in Houston, Fort Worth, and other cities across Texas this week. And yesterday, KVU's Ashley Godot had a chance to ask her about her campaign. Congresswoman Crockett argues that recent polling shows she can beat Ken Paxton if he's the Republican Party's nominee.
If it comes down to being our Attorney General, then that means you have a candidate who is on that stage and is more experienced, because I would be the only one with any federal experience in the race in the matchup between the two of us. Recent polling has me up over Ken Paxton. It is not the first poll.
You can catch more of Ashley's interview with Congresswoman Crockett this weekend on Texas This Week. It airs.
Like she said, she's ready to take him home.
She's definitely ready to take him home. And, you know, they have ran the data and they have ran the numbers. And she is definitely the front runner, and she is definitely one that could win that Senate seat and things like that. Because what they fail to realize, they have underestimated Black voters. Black voters has not really participated in any of the in most of the elections in Texas, and so Black voters, Hispanic voters, that's an untapped market. So throughout Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi, the Democrats actually outnumber the Republicans, and the person that's going to get the Black people to the polls is Jasmine. And I've been seeing up and down my timeline about, you know, people going out to vote, and people have been early voting. And I've also been seeing that, you know, they're trying to stop, you know, people from early voting and things like that. But, you know, my advice to you guys, just stand tall, stand vigilant, and, you know, do not let them discourage you from voting. Go out there and vote. Let your voices be heard. You need someone who's going to fight for you. James Tallarico, he's the machine. He's the old party. He's not going to put up a fight like Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett is someone who's going to be in the streets. She's going to fight for you. She listens to her constituents, and she cannot be bought. So your best bet is to get out there and vote for Jasmine and things like that. Do you have the other video up and running?
Yes, we have the other video up and running. So let's check out this other video, which you're talking about some of her politics and everything like that. So let's check this out.
We've done something that the Department of Justice has failed to do. We have actually sat down and listened, not once, not twice, but on multiple occasions, to the survivors. As you saw last week, A.G. Bondi wouldn't even turn and look at the survivors, let alone allow her DOJ to do their job, which is to investigate. So here we are as the legislative branch doing our jobs and trying to do oversight. Let me tell you, the survivors have said over and over and over, follow the money. That was the one thing that they told us, as well as their attorneys, follow the money. Well, we're following the money, but I'm going to be perfectly honest with you and tell you that we are running into dead ends at this moment. On yesterday, I was asked about this particular deposition and what I anticipated I would hear. As a trained attorney and litigator, once they told me he wasn't taking the fifth, I thought that the record would be full of I don't remembers. I will tell you that once this record comes out, you will see that you most likely will be left with more questions than answers. It is almost inconceivable to be missing the amounts of money that are missing, and somehow Mr. Wexner have no idea. The other thing that I want you to pay attention to, because again, as a trained litigator, think about some of the themes that we keep hearing. We know that there were supposedly these fraudulent modeling agencies that were set up all over the country, and girls would go in thinking that they were going to get their chance at modeling. Victoria's Secret. We know Victoria's Secret was known specifically for their fashion shows. We know that there are reports of girls that went in thinking that they were potentially going in to model. These are not coincidences. There's two things that have been clear, is that there were always young girls seemingly looking for an opportunity to model, and there were always rich and powerful people on the other side, dangling a carrot, saying, I will give you the life that you're seeking. Yet ultimately, the stories are the same. They're stories of abuse. They're stories of trafficking at the highest level. And I will tell you one thing that was remembered for sure was when asked about Donald Trump and Epstein and whether or not they had been in the same room and what that looked like. He didn't quite remember, but he imagined that, yes, that possibly happened, because he did remember that Donald Trump also would like to show up to the Victoria's Secret runway shows. Now, that was a little odd to him, he said, because Donald Trump was not engaged in fashion whatsoever. But he does recall that. He also said something that I feel like we've heard over and over and over, which is that Epstein liked to drop people's names. So he'd imagine that that may have been one of the names that he dropped. Listen, I want the American people, but more specifically, I want the survivors and anyone who is struggling right now to know that we see you, we feel you, and we are fighting for you. We will not stop. If Mr. Wexner is honest about his intentions in helping us, then we're asking him, if he doesn't remember, then go ahead and turn over all of your financial records, because we need to follow the money, because that is exactly what the survivors told us to do. And we know that the Department of Justice is either inadequate or just not interested in doing justice as it relates to this particular scenario. We in America deserve better. We are looking around the country and we're seeing CEOs that are having to leave their own companies. We're seeing people that are having to leave their board positions. We're seeing princes being dethroned. We're seeing all kinds of stuff everywhere except for right here at the highest levels of federal government. Whether we're talking about Donald Trump himself or whether we're talking about Secretary Lutnick, and the list goes on. We deserve better in this country, and we will get it.
So I love Jasmine.
Yeah, Jasmine don't be playing.
You know, I love her. I love, I love her fire. I love her tenacity. I love her spunk. I love everything about her. And, one of the things is, she brings the thunder, and, she's a triple threat to the Republicans, and they're scared of her. And they do not want her with that seat. They purposely wrote her district out when they did the gerrymandering and the redlining. And they didn't expect her to toss her hat in for Senate. They thought that they were going to get rid of her. But, like I said, she is going to beat James Talarico for the Democratic nomination, and she is going to become the next senator of Texas because, again, they have underestimated the Black vote and the support that she has. And then I also know that they tried to throw a ringer in there, some Black guy, some Republican Black guy, when she was initially running back for her Congress seat and things like that. And, he basically just went by the wayside or whatever, but they were trying to dissuade, the people from voting for her. And so that they will vote for him. And, a lot of people were like, we're sticking with Jasmine. She's always been there for us. And, we knows that she's going to fight for us. So that is, where, the people loyalty lies is with her. So I know if she get that nomination, she is going to be the next senator of Texas. And she's going to represent them well. I mean, you know, like I said, there's a lot of hoopla going around about her and about, you know, what she's saying and what she's doing and things like that. But, you know, these are the same people that came out when Kamala was running for Vice President Kamala Harris was running for the presidency, you know, saying some of the same things about her. And a lot of these people who are making these comments, they are not even Texas residents. Some of them are not even in the United States. We have people attacking, you know, our political figures from different countries and things like that, trying to meddle in our elections, like Elon Musk meddled in the presidential election, because, you know, you cannot tell me that Donald Trump won that election. They cheated, they rigged those voting machines, and they cheated. So I know he did not win that election without the help of Elon Musk. And so, you know, we do have, you know, foreign entities and foreign people trying to sway our public elections and trying to, you know, trying to help dismantle our democratic process. And so we need people that we know that's going to fight. We need people that we know that's not going to be the same machine, like James Tallarico. He's going to be the same old thing or whatever. He's not going to fight for the people. He doesn't understand, you know, the struggle of Black people. He doesn't understand the struggle of Hispanic people. You need a person of color who understands, you know, what it means to be a person of color. You can have a white person all day long say, I understand and I sympathize and I don't see color. They don't understand anything that we go through. They don't understand nothing. They feel that, you know, our success, we shouldn't have our success. We shouldn't have the things that we have. You know, there's a video out there, Mark, where the one of the white gentlemen and white woman is saying, you know, look at him. You know, I've lived in this neighborhood all my life, and he just comes in. He's driving a brand new truck in a big house and things like that. How is he able to do that? Work, sir. Work. Mm-hmm. Work. You know, so they feel that we shouldn't be entitled to the things that we have. We should not live the way that we live. And, you know, it just really baffles them when they find out that we're not living in the slums and we're not, you know, we're not poor like they think that we are. And, you know, we're educated and we have the means to, you know, survive and, you know, things like that. And that just really baffles them. And again, it goes back for me, it goes back to being able to understand your constituents. That's just like in Jackson, Mississippi. A lot of the people who are on the city council and things like that are white, but the city is predominantly Black. And then you had a Black man to vote that I can't remember all of it, but it's like certain things with the laws and things like that or whatever. The white people will control everything. And I'm just like, it's always one that will, you know, mess it up for the masses and, you know, sell out their own people and sell out their own race. But, you know, if Texas and everybody else wants to improve this country and bring this country back to a reputable standing and bring this country back to our democracy, you need to vote blue, and you need to vote for Texas. You need to vote for Jasmine Crockett, and everywhere else you need to vote for the Democrats to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
I just want you to check this out. I'm not going to play the whole thing and everything like this. It's a very long one. But this is a case that I saw recently that I know you'll love hearing about as well, because the man did win a case. But check this out, because this plays into what we're talking about.
Agent Marcus Rodriguez had been with the DEA for 12 years when he led a drug raid that would destroy his career and cost the federal government $12.4 million. He was 34 years old, experienced enough to verify an address twice, but apparently convinced that his investigation was flawless. One Thursday morning in Cambridge, Massachusetts, he kicked down the door of what he believed was a drug distribution hub. The house actually belonged to Dr. Marcus Whitfield, Dean of Harvard Law School, author of 3 books on constitutional law, and a man who'd spent 30 years building an impeccable reputation in legal academia. What Rodriguez did next, handcuffing a Harvard dean without checking the warrant address, ignoring multiple forms of university identification, and conducting an armed search of one of Cambridge's most distinguished residents, would become evidence of how federal agencies can terrorize innocent citizens when procedures fail and assumptions override evidence. 6 agents with assault rifles would spend 43 minutes searching Professor Whitfield's home study, his personal library, and his bedroom while he sat handcuffed on his own front porch, watching neighbors film what appeared to be the arrest of one of Harvard's most respected faculty members. A distinguished black man in his late 50s, Dr. Marcus Whitfield was reviewing tenure applications at his antique oak desk when federal agents began pounding on his door at 6:23 a.m. His reading glasses were perched on his nose, his Harvard law mug steaming with fresh coffee beside stacks of student recommendations. No drugs, no crimes, no violations, just a constitutional law scholar reviewing academic files in his home office. But Agent Rodriguez saw him through assumptions so distorted by confirmation bias that he couldn't process a black homeowner as anything but his target. Before we dive deeper into what happened that morning,
I mean, it's no surprise there. They have always been doing this to us. You know what I'm saying? Even now, I mean, even when I tell people I'm Dr. Anthony, or I introduce myself as Dr. Anthony when I'm at conferences and things like that or whatever, I still get those looks like, oh, you're Dr. Anthony, you're this, you're that. You know what I'm saying? I still get those looks, so I can understand exactly what he's experiencing and what he's going through, because again, they do not expect us to be in those type of positions. Right. They don't expect us to have that type of, education. They don't expect us to have that type of, know-how, that type of intellectual acumen and things like that. And I can talk about, University of Southeastern Oklahoma. This lady, this white lady who I was taking a English class with this past advisory or whatever, she basically accusing me of using AI. I'm like, ma'am, I didn't use AI. I wrote my papers. I always write my papers. I said, I use Grammarly and Purdue's OWL Lab to, go over and check my grammar and things like that or whatever. But I wrote my papers. And so she was like, I'm not going to pass her class. And I might as well just drop the class. So I sent her a fiery ass email and I told her I would never take another class. I said, it's not the fact that you think that I'm using AI. It's the fact that you think that I don't possess the intellectual acumen to, write the papers that I'm writing, and you're accusing me of cheating. And like I told her before, I said, I have been a published author, and I was published way before I even became Dr. Anthony. I was published when I was at master's level. I was doing, work and presenting at conferences with my professors at the master's level before I even became Dr. Anthony. And I was like, do I need to send you all of my certifications and my credentials and things like that or whatever? So it just goes to show you how they don't believe that we have the ability and we have the intellectual sense, the intellectual acumen to, do the things that we do and hold the positions that we hold and things like that. Because I literally just went through this last week. And I told that broad I would never sign up to take a class with her ever again. So I have to take 4 more classes at that particular university because I'm doing an English certification so that I could teach English online. I'm already certified English in elementary and middle school. So I want to go to the next level of being certified in English. So I have to take a few more classes and things like that or whatever. So like I said, it was never about, the AI. It was about the fact that she didn't believe that I was capable of writing the level of papers that I was writing and things like that. And like I told her, I'm a published author. I've been a published author. I can write, just because my papers does not have any grammatical errors does not mean that my papers were written by AI, which they were not written by AI because, they have the AI trackers and things like that. And I was like, I possess the intellectual capability and the intellectual acumen and the know-how to, write my papers. And I tied, everything about, rhetorical English, rhetoric and, things like that. I tied it to something that was happening into the world today. And I was like, is it the fact that I talked about this administration? Is it the fact that I talked about, being a Karen? Is it the fact that I talked about, Donald Trump and his racism and how it affects, Black people and things like that or whatever? So no, that particular moment with that particular professor happens every day in some form, in some capacity with one of them, because they think that we are less than and that we do not possess the intellectual ability, acumen, and the intellectual know-how to, be something other than a baby mama, a criminal, or, you know, something less. They don't see us as, you know, like equals and things like that. And like I tell her, I possess the same PhD that you have. You know what I'm saying? So, so it's very interesting, you know, that Mark will pull up this video and, you know, this professor is experiencing, you know, the foolishness that they're experiencing and, you know, and things like that, because, you know, we're in 2026 and this backward laid back, well, I wouldn't even say laid back, this backward ass thinking what they have, and this backward ass thinking that, you know, we cannot possess, you know, things, and that we should be at a certain level, and that we should not have success, and we shouldn't be, you know, elevated to, you know, certain positions and things like that. Something has to give, because it's utterly ridiculous that we're still going through the same foolishness and the same BS that our forefathers and our ancestors and all of that stuff is, you know, that experience, you know, way back in the day, and it's sad and things like that or whatever. But, you know, I'm going to be the one to speak up, and I'm going to be the one to say what I got to say, because, you know, like I said, little does she know, I already have my degrees. I already have my certifications. I already have this. I don't have to take your class, you know. So I'm contemplating on if I want to write a letter to the dean of students about, you know, the treatment and, you know, things like that or whatever. So I am going to make my decision regarding that probably later on in the week, and, you know, stuff like that or whatever. Because like I said, it wasn't the fact about, you know, you claiming that, you know, I use AI. It's just the fact that my papers were so good. You didn't think that I wrote my papers, and you didn't think that I had the intellectual acumen and the sense and the know-how to, you know, write those papers and things like that. You know, I am very well read. I am highly intellectual. You know, I don't just, you know, put the pen to the paper when it comes to certain stuff. When I write, I know what I'm writing. When I write, I research. I look up things. I support my case. I support my platform. I support my stance. I'm just not going to be out there just, you know, saying whatever and just doing whatever and, you know, things like that or whatever. But again, another white woman thinking that, you know, that I do not possess the intellectual acumen. But, you know, God had already put it in my spirit that she was going to behave this way, because she asked for our pictures. And I knew once she saw that I was Black and she asked for the picture or whatever, I already knew it was going to be some shenanigans, because he had already told me. He had already put it in my spirit when, you know, I was in the process of, you know, setting up, you know, for the class and, you know, things like that. So it was no surprise to me there. And it was no surprise to me based off of, you know, her behavior and how she acted, because I was prepared for it. God had already showed it to me. He had already put it there. It's called spirit of discernment. And I had it.
Yeah, that discernment is very important and all along those lines. But yeah, it's just amazing the things that they've been doing to us and all along those lines. But, you know, the clock on the wall just says it's about that time and everything like that. So another great conversation and everything like that. So we need to get ready to wrap up and everything. But the clock on the wall says it's about time to wrap it up with another powerful conversation about the ways that society is still trying to belittle the great accomplishments that we've been making and all along those lines.
Yes. So make sure you guys click like, share, and follow. Make sure you hit me up on Instagram, TikTok. I'm under Beauty and Brains, and I'm about to change my my Facebook name from my personal name to Beauty and Brains. So make sure you follow me on social media so you can, you know, get the tea and stay in the know and things like that. And like my producer says, the clock on the wall says that's all. So let's take us out of here, Mark. Deuces, my loves. What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to the All Around. I'm your gracious host, Dr. Anthony. Please tune in on Mondays at 6 p.m. for your entertainment purposes. We will hit current topics, old topics, and everything else in between. Be there or be square. Deuces, my loves.